Hey everybody, Stinger here with a special message, a special thank you to the best Italian wrestling podcast. That's right, the best Italian wrestling podcast called Pro Wrestling Culture. Specifically, thank you to Aldo Fiadoni. All right, Aldo, awesome job, man. I guess you and I met in New York in 2019. And there were some tears shed there. Man, I love that. I love that. You know what? Real men can cry, bro. Let me tell you something. Man, means a lot that you watch. Means a lot that this podcast is happening. And the pro wrestling culture appreciates Aldo Fiadoni. So be watching there. It's going to be showtime. And tune in to the podcast, Pro Wrestling Culture, because it's always showtime there from the Stinger.
Questo programma non è soggetto a infezioni. It's showtime.
Okay, welcome ladies and gentlemen in a new brand episode of Pro Wrestling Culture. My name is The Real Messiah and here with me our special guest of the evening, ladies and gentlemen, Tu Byt. Hi man, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing today?
Fantastic, thank you. This time after a long day of work, I'm finally ready for this conversation.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm the same. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, when you started your career?
My career. Well, so I started training when I was 13. So that was back in 2013. But I didn't do shows until 2017. So I've been doing shows for almost 6 years. As of the 4th of March, which will be when I debut in Milan, that will be my 6-year anniversary for doing shows. So I guess 6 years.
And who is your first inspiration?
My inspiration.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I started training, basically I was at school and I had a couple of friends that trained. And so I just was like, oh, I'll come down. Like I like wrestling. I didn't have, I don't know if you have Sky in Italy, but I didn't have Sky TV in my house. So like I couldn't watch that much wrestling. I used to watch like the stuff that you get for free, like Main Event, that kind of stuff. And like I remember vaguely remember Undertaker, Kane, they were like in a feud at the time.
Yeah.
They were doing like buried alive matches and stuff. My favorite guy was Rey Mysterio. I love Rey Mysterio. I really wanted to do lucha for a long time. For a long time, I was like just obsessed with being a lucha wrestler. Although I'm athletic, but I'm not that athletic. Like I haven't got the body for lucha. So yeah,
So,
I guess Rey Mysterio would be my inspiration.
are you ready for Dominic Mysterio versus his father Ray at WrestleMania?
Yeah, I'm ready for that. Yeah, I love a bit of Rey Mysterio.
Fantastic. So, if you like Rey Mysterio, I think you are a fan of Lucha Libre and Lucha in general for shows like Lucha Underground, so the old Lucha Underground, the AAA, and right now the Lucha Libre Barcelona, a very beautiful company here in Europe, in particular, obviously in Spain, where last weekend the OG Mo, Michael Oku, won the Lucha Libre Barcelona championship. So what do you think about that company, and if you want to be there one day?
I mean, I wouldn't classify myself as like a lucha guy necessarily. Um, I wouldn't say I wrestle like a lucha wrestler. I don't watch that much lucha wrestling for myself, for how I want to wrestle. Um, but I mean, I think it's a really cool company still. I think any kind of company that's flying wrestlers abroad is a cool company in my eyes, whether that's like SAJ, where I'm wrestling on Saturday, or whether it's like the place in Spain that you're talking about, where they've flown over Michael Oku. I think anyone that is actively searching for good wrestlers that they want to display in front of crowds that haven't seen them before, I think they're pretty cool places, yeah.
Absolutely. And mm, always there in Europe, outside the Lucha Libre, we have Progress, WXW, very nice and beautiful companies here in Europe. So I saw many matches of you last here in Europe. I remember the Fatal Four Way with Warhorse, Maggot during established.
Hello? Hello? Oh,
Hey man, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, about your experience in Europe with companies like Progress and many more. So I remember one of your matches there, uh, a Fatal Four Way match during Establish Your Love in chapter 149. So about your experience in Progress and many other companies, what do you think of that reality? Because I think, in my opinion, my personal opinion, companies like Progress, Rev Pro, WXW started the new boom of pro wrestling here in Europe 10 years ago.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it is very cool that I can say that I've wrestled for Progress. I mean, like if 6 years ago, for when I did my first show, if I said in 6 years' time you're going to be wrestling on Progress, I think that would have blown my little 17-year-old mind. So yeah, it is cool, and that the four way I did, so I wrestled Warhorse, and if you look at Warhorse's career so far, like he's wrestled for AEW, he's wrestled on TV, um, like it's hard when you're a wrestler because I feel like it's so go 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 go, and like I'm always training, I'm always like watching wrestling, I'm always doing this, that, eating right, going to the gym, all that stuff, and you get very fixated on wanting more, and that what you have isn't enough because you're hungry and you want to make it. So much to the fact that sometimes you take a second to like look at what you've done. And you're like, oh, actually, that's kind of cool. Like a couple of weekends ago, I wrestled a guy that's wrestled on AEW TV, a guy that lives in Germany, and also Tate Mayfairs. But I guess the less said about him, the better. I'm only joking. He's all right. But I mean, yeah, it is cool. I haven't wrestled for Rev Pro, but I'd love to wrestle for Rev Pro one day. That'd be fun. I'd like so the show on Saturday in Milan. That's my first European booking outside of the UK. So my first international booking. Again, that's really cool. If 6 years ago again you told me that I was going to be doing an international booking, that would have blown my mind. Also, it's kind of blowing my mind already now that I'm going to be in a different country wrestling. Yeah, I think Progress and Rev Pro and a lot of them places were responsible for a big boom. Also, places like Fight Club, Attack, those kind of smaller places that they don't necessarily get like big name value, unless you live in the UK, unless you're kind of around wrestling, you might not know what they are. But I think they also contributed quite a lot. I mean, I'm fortunate in that when I started training, it was 2013, 2014. As much as it was often like the middle of nowhere where I used to live, there's a place called Barrow-in-Furness in a county called Cumbria. Like you won't have any idea where that is. It's like proper out in the middle of nowhere. You've got to drive an hour before you can get to like the motorway or like the highway. So I didn't really see much in terms of shows apart from the shows that we put on, but I did see other wrestlers that would travel up. Like we used to have Dan Maloney would wrestle on our shows, Kid Lykos before he was Kid Lykos, Drew Parker, Pete Dunne did a show for us once. Like all these big names, but before they were big.
Yeah.
And you could kind of, I can think back to then, and I can think now, and I can see how much wrestling in this country has changed in the last 10 years. And I'm fortunate to have that, whereas I feel like a lot of people who are either at the same level as me or who haven't been as training as long as I have, they don't really see that. They only see when wrestling started picking up and when it started to boom. Whereas I've kind of got that insight of what it was like 10 years ago and how different it was and how shows were and how I feel like it was a lot more cornier. Whereas now it's kind of come into its own thing a lot more. And I think, yeah, like you said, I think places like Progress, Rev Pro, Attack, I think they really helped to build the scene back up again from what it was. And then I think in the last few years, the scene has suffered a little bit. I think since COVID, I mean, I don't need to go into details why it suffered. I think we all talked about it.
We know it.
We all know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, there's so many reasons why the scenes kind of just fell apart. And I mean, yeah, great. There's lots of like hungry guys. There's lots of guys who are willing to take up the top spots. It's just this kind of weird middle period, I think, where the quality of wrestling is like, okay, it's like passable. But I go to a lot of shows and I'm like, in 3 years' time, this is going to be so much better when everyone's kind of got the reps and everyone's got the training and everyone's learned. Whereas we don't really have that feeder system at the minute. We don't really have like the top guys to be taking us under their wing. Or if you do, you're very lucky. I've got Chris Ridgway, obviously, who I train with a lot. I train with Sam Bailey a lot. And it's great having them because I can get feedback from them all the time. But not everyone is as fortunate in that position. But yeah, I think overall, to answer the original question,
This is probably the beautiful part of professional wrestling. So a roller coaster capable of surprising all of us every time, probably.
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes I wish I was just a wrestling fan because it would be so much easier to enjoy stuff. I feel like really exciting stuff happens, and I'm just like, oh yeah, it's just wrestling. I just kind of pass it off. Like I remember when Cody left AEW, and I was listening I was listening to the Busted Open podcast about it when they were covering that, and I remember just being stood for the bus, and I was just like, oh okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then like 5 minutes later, I was like, oh my god, what? Like I it doesn't react the same in your brain. I feel like you just kind of accept everything that's happening around you. When it's wrestling, I feel like a lot of it is just absolute chaos.
And right now, during the second night of WrestleMania, it will be wrestler Roman Reigns in the main event of the show. So, tell us more about the West Strong. The Northwest Strong, your stable, because I think is a very cool stable, and you will show to the Italian fans that faction during the Squasher Jobber event this Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a bit of context of who we are, the group kind of came together back in the back end of COVID, kind of before we all could be free again. But there was a lot of us. There was a big group of us that would train together down at the unit with Chris Ridgway. And that included like me, Chris, Keenan, Luke Jacobs, Ethan Allen, Scott Oberman. Rio used to come down sometimes. There was a lot of people that used to come down. We'd all train together, and it was very dojo-inspired workouts that Chris had been doing when he was over in Japan. And so it would be like over 1,000 squats, hundreds of push-ups, hundreds of pull-ups. And like we do like it was on a Sunday, we'd go down and we just do like a big long day down at the training unit. It'd be like 8-10 hours long, and we just do like all the workout stuff, and that would take like 4, 5, 6 hours maybe to do all of that stuff, and then we'd like wrestle around at the end with each other. And like they're probably some of the best memories I have. It was like just so fun. And you got to bear in mind this was after we just been in lockdown for on and off, and I don't know, for about 2 years on and off. And so like to actually get back fully training and to get to a point where like my cardio wasn't so bad and that I wasn't wanting to throw up every time I hit the ropes, I just to feel good, but also like you with your friends. It's not just like going to the gym and it's a bit of a chore. It was like you with your friends, you're all training together, you're all laughing, you're all joking, you're all having a nice time. It was just fun. And like we used to watch the Euros one at that kind of time. I'm trying to remember what happened in that Euros. I think UK did pretty good in them Euros. The UK might have that might have been the one where they made it to the final. I'm not a big football fan. I don't know if you can tell, but like we used to train down at the unit while we're doing all the squats and stuff. We'd have the Euros on in the background. It was just lots of fun, and that's kind of developed. And Chris, Luke, and Ethan were already part of Northwest Strong. They'd already established that themselves prior to COVID, and then COVID happened. And then while they were doing the progress pre-tapings, they were teaming up a lot. And then it's kind of developed into a bigger faction. And so they added Keenan, they added Scott Oberman, they added Rio, they added... have I covered everyone there? There's quite a few. They also added Joe Kessler.
It's a big stable, probably. Yeah, the big stable in Europe for number of members right now. Your stable and the Legion in progress.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at a point there was 8 of us. There's now 7 of us. But I mean, yeah, there was a big emphasis on the jackets at the time because we all had the same jackets. We all still have the same jackets.
Yeah.
And so, like, I remember when I wrestled Chris Ridgway in the second match that we did. It was probably like the best match I've had up until now, or at least my favorite match. And maybe that's for personal reasons because we've known each other so long, ever since I first started training. But
yes,
we had like a really fun match. The crowd were so into it the whole time. Like it felt like a special kind of atmosphere. And then at the end, he gave me the jacket, and I didn't know he was going to do that. And so it's very humbling. It's very nice. But yeah, Northwest Strong, we're a group of mates who all train together. We all train very hard, but we all have a lot of fun doing it. And we all love just wrestling. We just love getting in there and just wrestling people. And we really just want to be the best. We're not bothered about whether you can do the coolest flips or the coolest high spots. I mean, what we're bothered about is just doing a really good match, just doing a really good, solid match.
And about Saturday, 4th March for the Squash Jobber, are you ready for that show? And do you want to say anything to the Italian fans?
Yeah, I was born ready for this show. Yeah, I think these Italian fans are going to be pretty excited by the end of the match, and also pretty mortified by how much we beat up the hometown boys. But I'll leave it at that.
Fantastic. So, man, thank you very much for your time. I hope to see you in person one day, and seriously, good luck for your career, not only here in Italy for the Squash Jobber show, but in general in progress in Rev Pro. I wish you the best and the opportunity to realize your dreams. Seriously.
Thank you very much. Are you not at Squasher Jobber on Saturday?
Yes, my friend. This is the project Pro Wrestling Culture. I am the creator of that project, but my right hand, the professor Matteo Pagliarella, will be there, and I think you have the opportunity to meet each other. Absolutely.
Oh, perfect. Get him to come say hi to me, because I probably won't recognize who he is, but
Absolutely.
you get him to come say hi to me. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, man.
Thank
Have
you.
a nice day. Thank you.
You too, man.